Morning, everyone. It's great to see you all coming in. Some really good numbers. I hope you enjoyed yesterday. I thought the session with Jay from and Lee from Canadian Fair was really good, really insightful. So good to see. I do see some names I recognise in the chat, so that's brilliant. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, I've got you all for half an hour, and I'm going to do a little bit of a. I think some of you might have seen my sort of coast to coast presentation, but I've actually got a new one. So yeah, I'm going to do a bit of a kind of overall intro into Canada. And then what I'm going to do is cover off some of our province and territory partners that aren't here or that aren't part of this event. So yeah, so great to see you all. Get involved in the chat. Ask loads of questions. Feel free to give me lots of abuse as well. It's all good. And yeah, we will crack into my presentation. So it's always good to start with a map. This is kind of a new map. I quite like this map. So yeah, I mean, I think this map's quite good just to see actually how big Canada is. And I think there's something like UK fits into it 41 times or 42 times. Big country, so lots to go at. And then this is another map which I quite like, which has got some of our train routes on it. But also this one's quite cool because it's got our time zones and we've got 7 time zones. So again, big country. But, you know, I always say to people, if they don't really know Canada, you want to kind of split it up into smaller chunks and really, you know, zoom in on those places that most of the clients go, which, you know, arguably is BC and Alberta in the west and then Ontario and Quebec in the east. But obviously, we have people going all over Canada, and I'm going to bring that to life a little bit today. So it's good to start with flight times. This slide has recently changed, which I'm super excited about because we've got a direct flight back to St. John's, which is so good. My starting kind of gambit with Canada is it is closer than you think. And we have got that WestJet flight back now next year, flying to St. John's from Gatwick. Starts in June. I think it runs through to September. And it is a 5-hour flight. So, you know, it's not much further than going to Turkey. And then obviously we've got Halifax 6 hours. We've got Air Canada flying there daily, year round. Obviously Montreal, Toronto, you've got that option for a city break, 7.5, 8 hours. And then the West Coast is 9, 10 hours. Calgary, 9 hours. Vancouver, 10 hours. Obviously flying time is a little bit shorter than that. You know, Calgary flying time is just over 8 hours, but the actual flight time is 9. Same with Vancouver, it's just over 9, but it ends up being about 10 hours. But it's always a nice flight, I think, to Canada. You leave mid-morning, you get in the afternoon. So I think that's to our benefit. Now, we've got a real focus this year, and hopefully you saw it coming through yesterday in some of the presentation. Well, the presentation me and Steve did. We're really focusing in on fall next year, or autumn as we know it. So we're really trying to extend that season into October. And you get to see these beautiful fall colours, and we've got the Shadow Frontenac there in Quebec City. And also winter as well. You know, Canada's winter really well. We get proper snow, but it's not all about skiing, you know. And I think Lee covered some of that stuff off yesterday with all the great non-ski winter activities. So it's worth looking at that winter trip for your clients. So I think the first way to start really, and this is what you need to get clear fairly early on from your clients, is how to get around. You know, there's obviously lots of different ways to travel, and I just kind of highlight the different ways. So, you know, certain clients do love a seat and coach holiday, and for those that may be a bit less mobile or a bit less confident in terms of not wanting to drive, it's a great option. And I think, you know, we've got lots of great partners that offer Canada, you know, whether it's APT, Insight, Talc, but also some of our tour operators like Newmarket and TravelSphere, you know, have that seat and coach offering, which is, you know, priced well, but you get to see all the great stuff. And then it wouldn't be Canada if I didn't talk about the train. You know, the train is such a huge part of Canada's history and how the East and West got connected. So this is a Via Rail here. Obviously, Via Rail is our national rail service, which runs, and you can get the Canadian, which is our big trip, which runs from Toronto to Vancouver. Takes 5 days, I think, 4 nights. But also there's lots of other options with via rail. You can get up to Churchill to see the polar bears. There's a really good route in the east I've taken called the Ocean, which runs from Montreal to Halifax. And then obviously we've got the Rocky Mountaineer, which is a huge bucket list, big ticket item, and they're joining us on Canada Fest, so you'll get to hear more about Rocky with them. So train's an option, and I think particularly the East Coast is good for trains if people don't want to drive. You've got the corridor service, which runs really from Niagara right up to Quebec City. So it's a great way to see Eastern Canada without renting a car. RVs are becoming increasingly popular. I think the Brits are getting a bit more confident with RV travel. Our European friends travel with RV a lot, and we've got it is a great way, particularly for families as well, to see Canada and get that real kind of authentic outdoors experience. And you've got your wheels and your accommodation in one go. And then I think the best way to get around Canada is by car. Self-drive, for me, is by far the best way to do it. So I would always recommend, if clients are comfortable driving in this country, Canada's probably easier because it's quieter roads, bigger roads. The cities are smaller. So yeah, I think self-drive is by far the best way to go. So I always say self-drive. And then I think you've got to throw in some other cool kind of modes of transport, whether that's getting in a canoe, a kayak. The seaplane option is really fantastic. Harbour Air is the biggest seaplane company in the world, based out of Vancouver. So even if your clients just do a little seaplane sightseeing tour, or they go over to Victoria, that is the price point is really friendly, and it's kind of a once in a lifetime experience. And then we've got the Niagara helicopters as well. Anna, who's the sales rep there, is fantastic. I know we've done quite a few fans, and she always gets people on the heli, and you can see that girl there's having a great time, and it is like that. It's phenomenal. And it's again, like if your clients a game and want to take a helicopter, again, it's a fairly cost-effective way of doing the heli trip. And I would say the best, you do it first, and that's the first time people see the falls is from the air, and then you go and do Hornblower and you go behind the falls. So what I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about some of our provincial partners and territorial partners that aren't here. We've got 13 provinces and territories. We've got quite a lot of them presenting. So I'm just going to cover in a little bit and just very highline sort of overview. And we'll start with Newfoundland and Labrador. So obviously we're super excited about the new WestJet flight, which basically offers direct flights from Gatwick next year. And it's a 5-hour flight. So Newfoundland and Labrador is the most easterly province in Canada. It's always quite interesting. Gander Airport used to be a real international hub. When the planes couldn't get all the way to New York, they used to stop in Gander, and everyone stopped in Gander. Obviously, we can get there now, but it is the closest point to Canada, to the UK. So moving on with a map. Being realistic, it is Newfoundland and Labrador, but Labrador is quite a niche sell. Not many of the clients will go there, so it's Newfoundland where most people will go. And what you get there is you get two of the largest ocean currents converge. So you get the cool Labrador current meets with the warm Gulf Stream, and that creates an abundance of marine life that attracts thousands of whales, and also amazing nesting ground for seabirds. So it's actually one of the few places, and this is a real cool thing, if you fly out in the summers, you can see whales, seabirds, and icebergs. And that happens kind of from around the end of May, early June into August, and sometimes through to September. So I think, the wildlife is a huge draw, and hopefully you'll get that across the week, seeing from some of our partners. The whales and the bears, particularly the whales, is phenomenal, and Newfoundland has some of the best whale watching in the world. They get something like, I think, 10,000 whales come up, and particularly the humpbacks. So it's kind of never guaranteed, but it's always quite a good chance of seeing whales. So there's 22 other varieties of whales and dolphins, including minke whales, sperm whales, orcas, and more. It's home to 35 million seabirds, including the puffins. And again, there's a lot of other wildlife in Newfoundland, particularly including the moose and Grossmoor National Parks. I think their moose population density is the highest in North America. And then, yeah, you do get bears and also coyotes, foxes, lynx, and caribou as well. So plenty of wildlife. And then these guys are particularly impressive, the icebergs. I think you all know about Titanic, and that came to grief not that far off St John's, off Newfoundland, where they hit an iceberg. But we're not going to have any shipwrecks on your trip to Canada. I mean, you basically can go out. You can see them from the land, and these icebergs are like 10,000 years old. Or you can go up, and they do boat trips as well. And it's quite cool. They harvest the ice, and you can have iceberg beer, iceberg vodka. And then there's a really cool website called icebergfinder.com, where you can basically go and see where the icebergs are. And now moving on to, I mean, Newfoundland and Labrador is, rural communities make up the backbone of the province, and these fishing villages are super colourful, super cute, and really close-knit communities. So this is Trinity here, where you get these beautifully restored fishing rooms and salt box houses. The people are super friendly all over Canada, but particularly Newfoundland and Labrador. I think we talked about this yesterday with Race Across the World. You will have seen that in the last episode, the race, how friendly people are. But yeah, I mean, we were there and we just got randomly invited into someone's house for what they call a kitchen party, which basically you rock up and they all like play an instrument and I give you a beer and normally some food, and it's great fun. Now, I did watch, for those of you that follow a bit of the BBC Sounds stuff coming through, there's actually a show on Radio 4 with Sean Keaveney called Your Place or Mine, and basically you get someone on to try and persuade him that they need to go there. And there's one recently which you should check out on BBC Sounds with Dom Jolly, and he basically persuaded Sean to go to Newfoundland and Labrador, but actually Fogo Island in particular. Now, Dom Jolly is married to a Canadian, so he knows Canada pretty well. But it's quite a funny take on Newfoundland and Labrador, so that's worth checking out. So if we move, we've got Nova Scotia with us, so that the Carl will give you an update on. So we're moving west from Nova Scotia. We've got New Brunswick, and yeah, so New Brunswick is beautiful province. It's located again. We've got a map there. So you've got Nova Scotia there. So it doesn't have direct air access from the UK. So you tend to people flying to Halifax. And then we'll self-drive, and we'll include it generally with Nova Scotia. You can also get in from Quebec as well. But yeah, I think, the maritime provinces, sort of the name gives it away in terms of it's really all about, getting out on the ocean. So we've got like a little map here with like a road trip. And just a couple of points to sort of talk about. St Andrews is a really beautiful seaside little resort on the coast. It's really cute. They've got this wonderful hotel called the Algonquin. Really good food, some of the best food I've had in Canada. And also it's a gateway to whale watching. So again, if you're in Nova Scotia or Prince Edward Island or New Brunswick, whale watching, you have to do whale watching. And the season there runs sort of May, June into September. Now, St John is it's actually the oldest city in Canada. Now, this is where you have to make sure you don't get confused with St John's, which is in Newfoundland. St John is in New Brunswick. And it's a really cool kind of vibrant city. And then the real kind of signature sort of site in New Brunswick that you'll see on a lot of the pictures is the Fundy National Park, and basically you get Hopewell Rocks, which is this place where you have the highest tides in the world, and that's the picture sort of bottom left there. So you can walk on the sea floor in the morning, and then you can be kayaking about sort of 8, 9, 10 meters higher up in the afternoon, and that's really cool. And then Moncton is one of the bigger towns in New Brunswick, and it's definitely worth a look. So yeah, just some pictures there, but really it's all about getting out in the ocean, it's low population density, lots of, again, really super friendly people, great food. So yeah, moving on to Prince Edward Island, PEI, where I went a couple of years ago, and it is beautiful. So sort of, you can see it's the smallest province in Canada. Again, like for those of your clients that like cruising, there is a really good option to cruise up from New York, Boston, which comes up this east coast and will end up in Montreal. And that's also a good way to see the maritime provinces, because they will generally stop in Halifax, generally stop in New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and then go on down the St. Lawrence River to Montreal. So again, PEI, you kind of think a small province, you think, oh, I'll go for a night or two, but you really need 3 or 4 nights actually to see it properly. And yeah, beautiful coastal beauty. They've got amazing beaches there. It's all about outdoor adventure, getting on the beach, getting out on the water, and then the food is phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, if you like seafood and lobster, all over the Maritimes, you'll be super happy. But particularly PEI, they've got great lobster and all the shellfish. So I'm going to move along. We're going to head right over. We're going to go past Quebec, Ontario, the prairies as well, who are all with us, so they can talk to you about that and talk a bit about Northwest Territories, or NWT as it's known for short. Now this is a picture here of Yellowknife and the lake there, which is North Slave Lake, and yeah, I mean they're basically it's located between the Yukon and Nunavut, so it's in the north, and it's actually one of our territories in the north part of Canada. I think one thing that's really opened up Yellowknife, or will do next year, and gives it a real option, because being honest, huge number of Brits going there, but now I think I mentioned this yesterday, we've got this new flight from Toronto to Yellowknife, which makes it way more accessible. And basically Yellowknife is really the best place in Canada to see the Northern Lights. Now it's Northwest Territories is massive. It covers like 1 million. I think it's like over 1,000,000 square kilometres. It's 5 times the size of the UK, and the population of NWT, I think, is only 42,000, with 20,000 of them in Yellowknife. So in terms of sort of wilderness, if you want that proper kind of wilderness experience, it's definitely a place to go. And then again, I was talking about this yesterday. That the Northern Lights is really a great place to see them. So we've got, there's a fall season again, mid-August to early October, and then they've got the winter season, late November to early October. But like I said, it is the aurora capital of the world. And why is that? I think, and it's basically actually situated underneath the aurora oval, so they actually get really good percentage chance of seeing Northern Lights. Unlike potentially Iceland, Finland, it's flat, so there's no mountains. It's away from the ocean, which typically can create cloud cover. So it's really a good place to see it. So yeah, and there's a chance of seeing it 240 nights a year. So there's a really good chance of seeing it. And then I think NWT has got some amazing self-drive if you've got some really intrepid clients. So it's kind of that ice road truckers type vibe, the Dempster Highway. So yeah. And then you've got these amazing national parks like Nahani, and the best way to see this is UNESCO World Heritage, is by the air in a plane. Now, I think if you want kind of NWT really brought to life a little bit, I binge watched it the other week. Actually, I missed it first time round, but there's this show called Alone on Channel 4, and it's basically they drop. I think there's 12 of them, basically in kind of the middle of nowhere in NWT, and they basically got some survival equipment, and they've got to see who will last the longest. It's actually really good. And actually one of the ladies there, I think I was told works for Ingham's, or she's in the travel industry. It's worth watching, and they have to contend with bears and some of the stuff out there. But you can go there in a safe environment and see all the wildlife. So yeah, black bears, lynx, grizzlies, foxes, bald eagles, caribou, and also these muskox, which is one of the places of seeing that. But yeah, check it out, Alone. It's on Channel 4. So Yukon, we've got is another great place for sort of northern light viewing, and potentially your Yukon might be a better option for some of your clients because it's only a 2.5 hour flight from Vancouver. So if you've got clients traveling in the fall, like late September and October, you could, and they've got the time, they could add on a northern light viewing package, maybe three nights, and go up to Whitehorse. But yeah, Yukon is really incredible scenery. They've also got wildlife viewing, and they've got this Klondike gold rush history up in Dawson, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's quite accessible. Like that, only it's a 2.5 hour flight from Vancouver, so it's kind of, I always sort of say, well, think about, if people want to see Northern Lights, think about adding it on. Now they have quite a short season, so for those that go in the summer, long daylight hours from April to August, and you get up to 24 hours of light around the summer solstice. But again, I think everyone kind of worries about Canada being cold year round. I think in the summer it's not, and even in the kind of northern latitudes like the Yukon, it's not. So yeah, the season really is June to September, but a great chance to hike, bike. It's a real kind of outdoorsy place. And again, they're all reviewing late August. I think realistically you want to kind of get into September to mid-April. And yeah, I think they say you recommend 3 nights for optimum viewing success, and you can do a package. Canadian Fair will be able to do that. Our other tour operator partners will be able to do that. And also you can get to do snowmobiling, dog sledding, ice fishing. And I'm actually going up in January for the first time, which I'm pretty excited about, with Della, who some of you might know at some of our road shows, who represents the Yukon. So there is a winter program, and I will talk about that when I come back on our webinar series next year. So just talk a bit about the dog sledding, snowmobiling, snowshoeing. But again, this is stuff you can do all over Canada as well. So we have got Michael here representing Vancouver and Whistler, which again are 2 of our really popular stops in BC. But I thought I should talk a little bit about the province, because it is such an important province for us in terms of tourism. My head office is there in Vancouver, so Michael's going to really bring to life Vancouver and Whistler. But obviously we've got the broader province, so I'll just bring that to life a little bit for you. I think you will hopefully know where it is. And then in terms of it's a genuine 4-season destination. So they have a proper spring, so mild temperatures. Coast gets a bit wetter, interior a bit drier, but they do get beautiful colours. You get the cherry blossom in Vancouver. Obviously, summer's when a lot of people will go, but we're really trying to push people into fall, which I think is actually September's one of the best times to go to Canada, wherever you go, really. Again, it's a little bit quieter towards the end of September. And then obviously, BC has some of the best skiing in the world. It's got some of the best heli skiing in the world in BC. And then Whistler obviously is world-class ski destination. We've got the likes of Sun Peaks, Brecon, Kicking Horse. You've got some of the other smaller resorts. But again, BC, again, like everywhere in Canada, the wildlife is phenomenal. And they've got whales, bald eagles, salmon, and the bears. BC is probably the best place to see bears, arguably. And it's the only place you get these spirit Commodore bears in the Great Bear Rainforest. I think there's only about 140 of them. So they're quite unique. But there's a lodge called Spirit Bear Lodge. And again, I think episode 3 of Planet Earth 3 is all about BC and the bears. So these are some of the lodges that you would go and stay in to try and see the bears and the whales. And I actually think this is one of the best things you can do in Canada. I've been lucky enough to go to one of these. It was one of my first trips, and they really are special places. I mean, there is a price point. It isn't the cheapest experience, but I think in terms of what you get, that wilderness, the wildlife, there's amazing food. It's small numbers. You're not with too many other people. It is absolutely phenomenal experience. So, but I think that these places book up, so you need to kind of book early. Again, Wales, BC has all the whales as well. Early May to October, they get the minke, the humpbacks, and some top spots there, Telegraph Cove, Port Hardy, but Victoria as well for seeing orcas. And if you're on a tight schedule, you can do a day trip to Victoria, taking a harbour air seaplane, and go and do whale watching. and hopefully see them. Again, the First Nations experiences, which I talked a bit about yesterday, is really coming to the fore. It's really growing in terms of the opportunity to experience sort of Indigenous product, and BC is probably leading that as well. There's an app, you can go on there, there's the website there, and you can actually check out your self-drive route and find some like Indigenous experiences. So yeah, I've kind of flown through BC, and I've flown all the way across Canada. So hopefully, I mean, gone through quite a lot there, and obviously we're lucky in the UK. We've got reps now for pretty much most of our provinces and territories. So if you want to learn more, you can always contact me, and I can put you in touch with the right people, or I can help you. But just to finish up, because I think we've got 4 minutes left, I always kind of do a shout out with the Canada Specialist Program. I know a lot of you are probably on it already. This is the latest version, and it's at canadaspecialist.co.uk. We've got an app with it now where you can learn on offline as well. So we've got all our modules on there now up to platinum. So I think it's 40 modules you need to take, but I think if you sat down and did it all together, it would probably take about 7 hours. So obviously not going to do that, but it's kind of manageable in terms of doing it, and we've had some really nice feedback on it as well. So yeah, do check out the Canada Specialist Program. And always, the best way for you to really learn about Canada is to get you out there on a FAM, and we always kind of, the first point in that journey is for you to take the program. So do take that, and then we will be announcing our FAM program probably early next year. So there will be chances to go out with us and with some of our partners and some of our tour operator partners like Canadian Fair as well. I know they've got something pretty exciting planned actually. So you have to look out for that in terms of FAMs. And then, yeah, just another shout out for our webinar program, which is finished this year, but we do have all the webinars recorded from this year. So again, a lot of the stuff I spoke about, the province and territories, you can go and get a deeper dive in terms of the 12 sort of 15-minute episode, and they're all on our YouTube page. And again, if you go to canadaspecialists.co.uk, plural with an S, you can access those webinars. So yeah, I mean, I could talk all day about Canada, and it is just phenomenal. And hopefully I've kind of whetted your appetite for a little bit of the kind of lesser known provinces and territories there. I think we're particularly excited about this direct flight to Newfoundland. It really brings it back on the map, because before you had to go by Halifax or Toronto, which wasn't always ideal. So we're really keen to kind of to get your support to help sell that flight and to really make sure that flight stays. And also the other provinces we take spoken about, the Maritimes as well, Nova Scotia. Carl will speak to you more about that. But getting up to the likes of New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island are really special, and worth a look for sure. And also I think the likes of NWT, which is really on the map now for us with those flights from Toronto. So do look out for that as another option for Northern Lights, along with the Yukon, because they're really the two strongest options. So yeah, I think I'm running out of time. I'll stop waffling on, but it's great to see you all in the chat. Thanks for supporting this. And yeah, we'll be out on the road next year. So I hope to see you all in person then. But do stick with us for the week and join some of the other sessions today. Thanks a lot. Cheers, guys. Bye.